Hello, everyone, and welcome to Central Georgia Focus, the Ask Mayor Miller edition. I'm your host, Liz Fabian from the Murphy Center for Collaborative Journalism. You know, each month we sit down with Macon-Bibb County Mayor Lester Miller and ask your questions and a few of our own. So, Mr. Mayor, thank you so much for joining us again this month.
You're welcome.
Well, you know, when the County Commission returns after Labor Day, and I can't believe we're here already, the millage rollback is on the agenda, but apparently it'll be offset by the Board of Education, which is not planning to roll back their millage rate. So can you explain how that works?
Well, I wouldn't say it's offset, but I mean, we're going from a millage rate last year of like 10.7, 10.8, down to 9.9. So that's a pretty substantial, I think, decrease. The millage rollback actually would call for a 10.1 if we were just going to roll it back and accept the rollback, and we're going further than that. County's separate from the
right.
School system, so I want to get that clear. As they establish their own millage rates. They have decided this year to not necessarily increase the millage rate, but by accepting the millage rate from the previous year, they'll be receiving probably $4.5 million more, which in some people's property taxes on the school side will go up. The county side will not go up.
But we get billed together. So that's what I was just saying. You know, people might be expecting a reduction, but then because the school board is not reducing their rate, they may be even paying more taxes. And what they're paying more for the school board might offset what I was saying, what they might save from
Right.
the county.
Well, the county side will still be less expensive. The overall bill could be a wash, you know, balancing out between ours and theirs. But it's a decision they had to make for themselves, and I think that they're going to have to advertise a tax increase, and there's still 3 hearings that they have to have. Fortunately for us, once again, we don't have to have any hearings, so we're excited about that. We're going to keep doing what we're doing, and hopefully they'll get their budget under control.
And the school system also has now this new steering committee of about 50 people to look at consolidating schools. In other words, you know, which ones need to be closed and combined with others. As a former school board president, I know you don't really have a say over this as mayor, but what do you think of that plan going forward?
Well, again, I don't like to judge what other folks are doing, but just kind of having some experience in the area, I think they're certainly capable of looking at the numbers themselves, not having to have these consultants. And the problem you get with adding that many people is you're going to have a bunch of opinions that may just be personally based instead of data driven. And unfortunately, if you do the data driven, they're going to have to close some schools that they don't want to close. So in the end, I don't know that they're going to do too much about consolidation or closing schools. Perhaps some redistricting can help with that, but it all depends on what the numbers are going to be in the next several years as far as the attendance and population. And
it's a very emotional issue, though, because nobody wants their neighborhood school to close.
Right. I was on the school board. We closed and consolidated several schools, many of which I was a student at a long time ago. And although it was a difficult decision, the end product is usually always best. People love the new school. They love the new environment. It kind of revitalizes the particular education that you got there. So I think most people are generally happy once it happens, but you know, the process can be kind of hard to go through.
Well, we do have a question from Joyce Wright, who's lived in Bloomfield for more than 35 years. She wants to know what's happening with Jesse Rice Elementary. And she said there was talk of a company purchasing it, but now it's overgrown and dilapidated. Again, it's an area that's really for the school system, but as mayor with your blight program, and you seem to have your finger on all those aspects to know whether a school is going to be sold or whatever.
Well, I spoke with the buyers of that school, Jesse Rice, and the intent originally there was to make that into some affordable housing. So I think that they purchased the school for a price from the school system. I assume it went through. They're going to convert that to affordable housing. It's some large acres out there, and usually when you do affordable housing, you have that. I think they're looking to rehab the actual school into affordable housing, not tear it down and rebuild that. But the longer something sits there and deteriorates and people take stuff from there, it becomes a dumping ground, the more difficult it is to make those schools work. So if they're going to do something, now is the time of the essence.
And I think something similar is planned for the school that's at Hightower and Hollis Road.
That's correct. Pearl Stevens school as well, not Pearl Stevens, but the Hightower there behind Krispy Kreme is another one there, Joseph the Neal School. You have that school there that I also went to, and it's been sold several times, and the closing never goes through. They want to rehab that property. You can get more money more loans to rehab property than you can build from scratch. So there's also another school I think they sold in another area. The school system trying to do the same thing with other players.
It's kind of neat though when an old school becomes housing or becomes assisted living or something like that, because people can still go visit their childhood school.
Yeah, Cynthia Ware is another one. Cynthia Ware School, there's been some talk from the owner of that school of converting that into some housing, and there's some plans available, and they're looking for some funding there. So you may kind of see that happen in the next several years.
I remember that one off of Rocky Creek.
That's
kind
correct.
of there. Also, 13 WMAZ has heard from residents that are concerned about overgrown sidewalks in Bloomfield, Pine Forest Road, or Howard Street in Trent. They say city crews started clearing along Rocky Creek but stopped short. Do you know when that might be finished, or is there something seasonal going on?
Well, it's always a schedule, and I think they spray sometimes they go and cut that out, but it's basically based on the need and the number on the schedule. So if they stopped at a particular area, that's just where they were at in the job site, maybe they got pulled over because of the storms, and perhaps they'll get back on that. We tell them to use C-Click Fix if there's a serious issue there. And sometimes it kind of goes into an intersection that starts a state road, and a lot of times people don't understand the difference between a state road and a county road and who bears the responsibility of that. But they also can reach out for C-Click Fix.
And GDOT, we hear about that a lot of times, with MLK running there through downtown is a state road.
Right.
So when people complain about things on that, you say, call GDOT, right?
Right, we don't want to throw them under the bus, but
No.
a lot of times, when they keep, focusing on what's on their mind and they fuss about a particular road, and we look at it, it's a road that we don't really own and have to maintain. Because once we do it, we're always going to have to maintain that road, but certainly it's the responsibility of the state, and they have additional funding for that.
And now shifting to the landfill, downtown Macon resident Greg Fisher says, has there been any discussion about turning that methane from the closed landfill into a profitable end product, such as selling it to a natural gas company or converting it to electricity or fuel?
Well, Mr. Fisher would be happy to know we already do that. So we sell the methane there to Cherokee Brick. They use it in their brick business to supplement the gas that they have coming there. So it's a win-win for both the county and for the Cherokee Brick, which is a great local company. So we've been doing that for quite a while now. We put some new equipment out there not too long ago to kind of help in that process to get a better product. And I think we'll look at expanding that as the landfill closes, and we expect that landfill to close by the end of the year.
And of course, you're kind of looking around that area as a possible location for a new jail or other development. Any thoughts on that?
Well, the landfill is a little ways from where we think a new jail may go or a complex may go, but also that landfill is going to be something that we have to clean and cut for a while, and it could be some type of a passive park in the future for people to go bird watch and other things. So I think you'll see some new development in that area too, and in the next splice we'll probably give you a little idea about that.
And Mr. Mayor, Jamie Rode writes that the Macon-Bibb County has a serious problem with stray animals. And the Nextdoor app has reported a pack of dogs roaming around North Highlands and Shirley Hills and killing small animals. While animal control is the sheriff's purview, do you have any recommendations to address this? Do we need more officers, larger shelters?
Well, I think that's a tough decision. Number one, it is the sheriff's responsibility, and when I get complaints, I talk to the sheriff, and he says, have them reach out directly to us. There's no reason that they'll call the mayor's office about a sheriff issue, but they continue to do so, and we'll forward them there. It's not that we're passing the buck. We certainly fund them, and I think we provide enough funding to do the job necessary there. Fully staffed, I'm not sure if they are that, but certainly they have the capability to become fully staffed. But you can't just keep building a bigger and bigger facility. At some point in time, it's diminishing returns, but really people need to step up to the plate and do what the law requires and have your pet spayed or neutered. I think that's the most important thing. It's one of those things where people say, why ain't you enforcing it? Well, how do you enforce that? Really, do you go door to door knocking on there and say, is your pet spayed or neutered? It's a tough process, and certainly we don't want someone to be in fear of their safety walking around a neighborhood and having dangerous animals out there. At the same time, if you trap those animals, if you euthanize them, then you got another set of group of people that's also going to be very passionate about killing these animals. And I think that's where the problem lies. I think there would be a happy middle. Right now, I'm looking into the previous splice to make sure that all the promises that the county made were actually carried through. And of course, I wasn't here back then, but people have said that we were promised this and we were promised that, but we're looking through those things to see if it actually was promised, because if it was promised, we're going to make sure we keep the promises even though it was a previous administration.
And this is an example of how public and private partnerships work, because a lot of the rescue organizations have been kind of working hand in hand to try to keep the animal population down and get dogs and cats adopted.
Right. I think that's it's important to have that, and we're looking at other communities that we think do a good job. I think Augusta is one of those that do a very good job and have to euthanize very little, if any, pets there. And certainly, I don't want to have to euthanize any pets. In certain situations, you have to do that. And certainly, I just wish people would follow the law and do the right thing, and we could all be a lot happier because of it.
And Cherie writes about the Sheriff's Department, inmate search website remaining down since the cyber incident in May. And I've asked the Sheriff's Office myself when that might be coming up. She says she has a family member who's a victim of a serious crime, and she uses that inmate search to keep track of the offender. Do you have any knowledge about why that's not back up yet?
Well, I don't have any knowledge why it's not back up yet. I think that's something you have to ask the sheriff about, but I will know that you need to contact the DA's office if you're a victim or have a family member that's a victim, because they're supposed to notify them of any proceedings coming up. The last thing you want to know is have someone getting out of jail and you didn't know about that. So I think that they can talk to Anita Howard's office about making sure they're on some notification list, that if anything's going on with that case or anybody's had a hearing coming up or a bond issue coming up, that they will be properly notified, so you don't have to look at that inmate query day in, day out.
Are there any other lingering effects from that incident? And I know that you've been spending money in the commission in terms of beefing up cybersecurity and things like that. Is there any update you can give us?
I think most things are pretty much back on track. And a lot of that was just precautionary. We wanted to make sure that we basically took all the steps necessary to make sure we didn't have a bigger incident happen than did. So we're back online. I think on our departments, the tax commissioner's office, we had the tax digest a little bit slow rollout because of that, the tax assessors. I think the clerk's office is back up and running for the most part, all gears there. Sheriff's Department had a few little issues to work out, but all in all, I think we've been very much proactive on spending money to make sure this never happens again. If it does, we deal with it the best way we can. So I think we're pretty much a go.
Well, we have Ask Mayor Miller and you have Ask Macon-Bibb County because you keep going onto Facebook and asking people about different questions. And one of them is whether the county charter should be changed to allow the mayor's term limit to be 3 terms instead of 2. County Commission currently gets 3 terms. So where are you with that? Is that something you want to pursue with the legislature?
Well, I think that's a decision I don't get to make. Certainly if we decide to do a ordinance in the county, we would do that, and then the state could pick it up or not pick it up. It's just an interesting thought. I've said it many times before, is Macon gets hurt in a lot of situations by having a mayor that's limited to 2 terms. There's a lot that takes process to get things, from point A to point B to point C, and you just can't do that in 8 years. And you got to have some continuity on funding, on building relationships with the state. At the same time, to me, it makes absolutely 0 sense to have commissioners that serve 3 terms and a mayor who is actually a full-time mayor. They're part-time commissioners that serve 3 terms, and a mayor gets 2 terms. So I think it'll be better for Macon-Bibb County, not just for Lester Miller, because I'll be here and gone. It's for organizations in the future. Plus, your employees, they need to know that they have a stable job. To vest in Bibb County, you got to have 10 years in for most positions. And if someone's going to be changed up every time you get a new mayor there, then they're not going to have any stability, so you don't attract the best people. So there's lots of reasons. Plus, we have SPLOST coming up. We have, redistricting will be coming up again before you know it. The census will be coming up. And you really don't want to have all your people leaving at one time. So there's got to be something to do to get some continuity there. One way to address that is perhaps having a 3rd term for a mayor, whether it's this mayor or another mayor.
And of course, the charter also provides for the sheriff to be the constitutional officer and did away with the municipal police force. You have any more plans to upgrade code enforcement, give them more responsibilities as sort of a pseudo-municipal force, or are you happy with where they are now?
Well, I think you'll see code enforcement now. They started going out, they'll be going out through the trails in downtown with the ATVs that were purchased for that reason. They worked this weekend. They worked at night downtown, the ATVs or their Tahoes, patrolling the area to make sure we have the added security. When school's back in, we get a lot more activity downtown, so we have to make sure we keep areas safe. So that's a way they can help supplement the work that the Sheriff's Department's doing, also for moving cars. I do think that you'll see us continue to hire code enforcement officers where we can get them and give them new duties and responsibilities, and they'll be part of our public safety program.
Talking about activities downtown, any more developments on having more sports tournaments at Carolyn Creighton Park or anything? Coliseum, I know that was a goal of yours recently.
We continue to do well. Excuse me. We've had a lot of tournaments at Carolyn Creighton Park. We just signed a new deal with the Macon Bacon. Mayhem starting with new ownership. things are looking well, and of course the next SPOS I think will help with a lot of that situation as well.
Of course, we're looking at possibly another, or at least an injection of cash to renovate the Coliseum or even create another event center.
I think all and above.
Okay.
We need a new arena. The Coliseum is certainly outdated. We need a new convention space, and if we're going to be competitive with everybody in the state, we're going to have to do the things that we need to do to make us more competitive.
On the issue of economic development, Ron Johnson wants to know, how is the local bidding for the infrastructure projects going to be publicized?
I'm not sure what he's talking about infrastructure projects, but we do what we typically do. We publish those on our procurement website. So Macon-Bibb-County.us, we have a procurement section there. All of our bids are placed out there. Of course, we filter those throughout the state as well and other avenues, but that's the best place to look for them. In particular, we have a lot of road work that'll be coming up to be completed. We got several projects on the horizon. Some of those are design builds. Some of those are just select the lowest bidder. So all that information will be on Macon-Bibb-County.us under our procurement section, and all the bids will be posted there with all the qualifications necessary and the time limits there as well.
Yeah, and it really spells everything out for you. And then there's even the opportunity for businesses to kind of pre-qualify with the county and with the state so that they could be like ready for the next projects that come along.
Exactly.
Now, while we're on the subject of development, during the last county commission meeting, Atrium Health Navicent held a meeting with stakeholders about possibly developing a healthcare kind of sector for the mid part of the downtown area. Have you heard anything about those plans or how that meeting? We were both tied up with county commission that night, so I just didn't know if you knew of anything on the horizon or any specific plans.
None that I can mention right now. I think it's going to be a very good project right there in the center of downtown, what we used to refer to as Midtown, just outside their footprint. So if you take that project together with the project we have coming behind City Hall that went through planning and zoning on yesterday, it's going to make for a nice little bow right there in the middle of our community. So I think they're going to do some further work, and very soon Atrium themselves will be reporting on what their plans for that is, and certainly we'll join in that as well. And
of course their plans include housing for their residents and for their employees, right? I mean, to be more of like live-work area?
I think that should be part of their plan. Certainly they make the final decision on that, but you'll see some very interesting and unique uses of that property.
And of course, some of that property was swapped last year with the County Commission UDA. So y'all got the old Macon Health Club and the bank building across the street. I understand UDA is going to be working with Newtown when it comes to that project at the Health Club. Is there anything you're looking at specifically for those properties now, or anything you can talk about?
Well, I think it's always been part of the plan to have some apartments or housing there, restore the health club back to a workable condition there, perhaps a city club, and then also having a hotel in the area together with parking. So with the Otis Redding Foundation, the museum that's going to be right there beside it, with the Hotel 45, with the auditorium reaching new heights over there after the renovations, you certainly need a hotel in the area, and I think we continue to grow downtown as well, so you need new housing there as well, and I think everybody wants to see the Macon Health Club get back similar to what it used to be back in the day.
And there's that nice balcony up there too. You could overlook everything that's going on as people going into the city auditorium or anything. Now, you recently met with 19 Kennesaw State University fifth-year architecture students who are going to be putting together proposals down on MLK near Greenwood Bottom. So what's going to happen with that project, and what can you tell us about your meeting with those students?
Well, I can say that they are very engaged, asking a lot of questions.
We should get some questions from them.
They had a lot of questions, and it's interesting to get a perspective from young folks. I call them young folks, not from our community, that are kind of doing first impressions. So we bring folks in there all the time to kind of give us an outside perspective. It's part of a project they have through the school, and basically to give us some feedback and information and potential plans on what we can do to make that more inviting to the downtown community. So when you come in Martin Luther King, Broadway, whichever way you want to call it, and you come into that railroad trestle, it doesn't look the most attractive there and inviting to our community. That is a state road, as we have mentioned. There are some issues along that area there with stormwater and things of that nature, as we've seen recently. Commissioner Paul Bronson is one who's requested several times for us to look at properties over there and how we can do that. So we're trying to accommodate everybody. And you have some thriving minority-owned businesses there as well, so I think that would benefit them. And we just helped EOC, not too far from there, bought an old junkyard there through the Urban Development Authority. So we're doing some work there as well. But it's nice to have a vision and see what can be in the future.
And another gateway leading into the city. Would that be something that might be included in a SPLOST project, or?
It could, at least purchasing some property or helping lift businesses up. You know, we want to make sure that it's like the spoke in the wheel, and that we're in the middle, and we want to have everybody thriving that connect to downtown, and that's another way to connect the Houston Avenue and Southwest Bibb County to that area as well too. So I think it's something important. We still have the issue with trucks there, and I expect sometime in the future there's probably going to be a road widening project there, because it's real narrow, as you know, as you go down there. When you got 2 lanes on each side, it's very narrow. So I would caution people not do too close to the sidewalks there.
Yeah, I got to leave a little bit more right away just in case, because you'd hate to have
or
something.
you could lose it, that's
Yeah,
right.
Right. Now, what's happening with the East Bank development? I know that y'all have been looking for like a general contractor or somebody to kind of oversee that whole operation. Anything yet?
Well, we getting the master plan. It's approaching the time that we gave them to do the public engagement. So that's the next step. They'll be engaging with the public on there, and then give us some general ideas on what we can do to maximize the use of the project. And then at that point in time, the county could take it and run with it to say, okay, we're going to put these pieces together, or we could look for upper development, whether this company or another company. So I'm excited about that project. I'm ready for it to kind of get up and running. It's going to happen at a great time, at the time we're voting on a SPLOST, so that whole area can kind of be tied in one package there to make sure that everything works together.
Hearing anything from Washington on the national park?
You know, I can't tell you too much on that. I just know that I've got my plane ticket ready to go at the time, and I'm looking forward to making a visit to Congress, and hopefully have a successful day in the very near future.
And we're about to close out the amphitheater season too, right? And I think you've been asking on social media about a gospel concert perhaps in the future. What are your plans?
We're going to finish very strong. I'm excited about the acts coming up in September, October. I mean, we have it like every weekend in October. It's going to be a great weekend, close to a sellout each time, and I think that's something we can be proud of, which is what we thought were going to happen in the very beginning. November is probably going to be a potential gospel, contemporary Christian show, and we kind of want to test the waters with that. You haven't had a promoter that can step up to kind of fill that place, or at least have enough there to make it work. So I've been kind of personally getting involved in that to make sure that we put the pieces of the puzzle together. Give people an opportunity, just like we did the last weekend. Give people an opportunity to show up for a genre they can support.
Instead of saying, why don't you have this?
Yes.
Well, then you got to buy the ticket so you can bring the acts in.
And if you bring the acts in and they have a successful trip and Macon-Bibb County benefits because of it, then it's going to be easier to get a promoter for multiple shows the next year. So this is kind of testing the waters, just like we did on the country, just like we did on the R&B, just like we did on the heavy metal. Those situations are a little bit different because you have promoters that were willing to book these artists there, pay the monies, guarantee the rates, and they took all the risk. But we have nobody step up on the gospel Christian music, step up to the plate. So the only way to test the waters is kind of get personally involved.
Well, there you go. You can get involved as well. You can send your questions at any time to mercerccj@gmail.com, and the next time we sit down with Mayor Miller, we'll ask your question. Well, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.